to the Bears Baseball Network, and I'll tell you what, it was another rainy weekend, and I said this on BBN After Dark, but it seemed like we got really, really lucky in the spring with not raining out. There were a lot of weekends where it looked like we might rain out, and then we didn't, but last couple weeks has been brutal with the rain. Once again, nobody really got to finish their tournament. A couple teams did get to play a couple games on Sunday, but for the most part, I don't think anybody got to completely get through their tournament. So no hacking time this week, but I do have a piece of content for you. Tell me if you recognize these gentlemen on the screen. Watson Blaybaum with some fan art here of the BBN crew. I appreciate that. Watson obviously is Harrison's little brother. I thought this was a great work of art. I think Watson's like 7 or 8, so I thought it was super, super impressive. But great job, Watson. I think it's great. Glad I got to get it on the show, so appreciate that, Watson Blaybaum. One team who did play well in their tournament, they didn't get to finish their championship game, but they did go into the championship game as the number 2 seed and finish second place in their tournament. 11U Floyd, who I thought had a very nice weekend. This team went 2-1 on the weekend and then was down in the championship game when it did get rained out, but they could have come back. I thought a very solid weekend for the 11U Floyd guys. Our first chance getting to see these guys as a non-youth prep team in game action. Bernie, wanted to get your thoughts on this one. I know you had a chance to be at least some of their games this Sunday. What do you think of the 11U Floyd guys in terms of their varsity debut?
Yeah, they looked pretty good this weekend. I think when you're at that point, at least or where I was last fall, I should say, you're kind of looking for your guys you can build around. And this team definitely has some of those guys. I mean, Closter was a monster this weekend. Dominic Ahern's a great hitter. Owen DeBrinsky looked like a stud at short. Even guys like Owen Haynes, who was there for the first time this weekend. So I think this group has a good core of players we can start to build around for future.
Yeah, it's one of those things where this group has a nice mix. You got some veterans who've been in the Bears a long time coming up through the youth prep program. You got some new guys who are hungry and pretty talented coming through the door. And you got a full group of guys who are really willing to work hard. And I thought the one impressive thing was I thought the pitching staff looked pretty good for this team. 11U is one of those ages where you question how deep is the pitching staff going to be. But I thought this team had several guys. Whedon Hainline, Owen Haynes, Owen DeBrinsky, several guys who went out there and not only threw strikes, but were able to get out. So I thought I was really impressive with the pitching staff. And speaking of Owen Haynes, let's go ahead and talk about our top 50 prospects. Once again, I want to shout out BBN After Dark. We went through all 50 of the BBN prospects in depth on BBN After Dark. We're only going to get a chance to talk about a couple of them today. So if you want to talk about all of our prospects, go ahead and check out BBN After Dark. But 2 guys on the top 50 prospect list. Owen Haynes, who's our number 17 prospect, and Carson Griffith, who's our number 6 prospect, are both varsity team on this 11U Floyd squad. And these 2 guys, I think, are going to be contributors from day one. I believe Owen Haynes was basically starting in the outfield all weekend. Carson Griffith was starting at third base all weekend. But these 2 guys look like they're ready to contribute right away. They're both working really hard. And KJ, I want to go ahead and start with Carson Griffith. Again, our number 6 prospect in the top 50. Give me your thoughts on Carson, because to me, he strikes me as a big, strong, hardworking quarter infielder.
Yeah, like you said, before I even got to see Carson play, just the size of him is something you really want. He passed out. He looks like a ball player. And obviously the physical abilities are there, but I saw him after practice hitting a little bit, so he's getting involved in stuff. And if this guy really buys into what we're doing and buys into the program, I don't know what the ceiling is, but this guy's going to be a very, very good player.
Yeah, and another name on that top 20 prospects, again, on this 11U Floyd team, Owen Haynes. Bernie, you got to see this guy pitch. This guy played, I thought, a really good outfield from when I was there watching. What are your thoughts on Owen Haynes, Bernie, and what do you think the ceiling is for him over his Bear career?
I don't know about him, but he could definitely be a very good player, but I think Haynes would be the center fielder on most 11U teams, but they have Lucas Closter out there for them in center field. He looks very good out there. And I said on BB After Dark that Owen Haynes on the mound, I was joking around with Mac a little bit because their second pool play game meant a lot to their seeding. Meant a lot for them to play an extra game or stuff like that. And so I was like, are you sure you don't want to go with someone like Owen DeBrinsky, someone that's been a little more proven for them? He's like, no, this Owen Haynes guy, he's the guy. And he went out there, he proved me wrong. He went out there and he shoved for that Floyd squad.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously he's got the confidence of his coach in him, and I think Owen Haynes is going to be a key producer for that 11U Floyd squad. Let's go ahead and look at the top 20 prospects here. This is the BBN's top 20 prospects. And I want to go ahead and touch on a couple guys, starting with prospect number 11, Braden Schmidt, who I think if you just talk about pure talent, not talking about anything else, not talking about age group or opportunity or proximity, just pure talent, I think Braden Schmidt might be the most talented rookie we have. I mean, this guy looks natural in a baseball uniform. I saw him hit 2 balls really, really hard this weekend, and with the glove, he is super slick. I'd be surprised if Braden Schmidt doesn't at least get a look for that 16U Dalton squad, but I thought he was very, very slick, both in practice and in the games. I was really impressed with both of his at-bats that I saw this weekend as well. So Braden Schmidt, I think he's a guy to look out for in that top 20 prospects, so I could see making an impact at some point this fall on a varsity team. Let's go ahead and talk about our number 1 prospect, Garrett Knight. And this is our 5th BBN prospect list that we've made since the BBN came back prior to our 2021 season or 2022 season. Garrett Knight, how do you think he compares to our previous number 1 prospects? So back in before the 2022 season, ZZ Garcia was our number 1. Before the fall, it was Nifri Kabarkis, and then before this last winter, it was Braden King, and he was a 2-time number 1 prospect on 2 lists. So I'll start with you, KJ, because obviously he plays on your team. How do you think Garrett Knight compares to these 3 guys who have all made it to the varsity team and are key impacts, and ZZ Garcia, who's an MVP candidate? How do you think Garrett Knight compares to these guys?
Yeah, I think he fits in well with this group. Braden King's more of a big time pitcher, which Garrett isn't. But you really look at the other 2. I think he's already got the physical ability that Nifri Kabarkis had at that point, and he's got the work ethic ZZ Garcia had at that point. So he's kind of a mixture of both. I think if you look at just prospect wise right now, I think he has as much potential as these guys did, and maybe even more. He's putting in the work that ZZ Garcia did, and what ZZ wasn't blessed with that Garrett's blessed with. Garrett's big, Garrett's strong, he's got huge size. So I really don't know. I think the ceiling could be above all these guys, and I don't think the floor could even be below these guys. I think he fits in well with this group.
Yeah, and KJ, one key thing you said there is, surprisingly for a guy like Garrett, who is a little inexperienced in baseball still, the floor I think is really high. I was really impressed with his at-bats. I thought his defense has come a long way. Bernie, I asked you about Owen Haynes' ceiling. What do you think Garrett Knight's floor is? What do you think is the floor case scenario for Garrett Knight? Is he a guy who is just going to sit in the middle of that order for the rest of his Bear career? Or what do you think the floor is for Garrett Knight?
The floor. So you're telling me you asked me for the worst case scenario?
Let's say most likely. What do you think the most likely case scenario is for Garrett Knight?
I think especially over this next year or two, where I think there's an opportunity for him to be, I'm not going to say 3 or 4 for that Floyd lineup, but maybe you'll let 6-hitter or a good, reliable 6-hitter. Like seeing get a little better around the plate so he can catch names from that team. But I think at the worst case scenario is like the 6-7 hitter and like an EH type for that team.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a good call. I think Garrett's past that point of, I don't think he's going back down to the second team. I think he's a mainstay on this top roster. And, KJ, I don't know if you want to say this on the show or not, but do you think he's a mainstay in the starting lineup at this point, or do you think he's still fighting for that spot?
If there's a guy you want to buy into, it's definitely Garrett Knight, a guy who puts in the work, a guy who has a hard, aggressive swing like he does. So, unless something crazy happens, unless pigs fly or something, I don't see Garrett Knight coming out of that lineup.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great call, and I 100% agree. Let's go ahead and look at our prospects number 21 through number 35, our next 15 prospects. Once again, if you want to hear the full list of these guys, we go in depth about all of these players on BBN After Dark. But Bernie, because we're running out of time, go ahead and give me one name between number 21 and 35 that you really want to expand on here.
Real quick, Joey Haddikin from 14U. It's a guy who works very hard, hits the ball hard. I know he started down. I'm pretty sure he started down with Kryler this summer, all the way up to Floyd. And I know Robbie's had nothing but nice things to say. Everything he's done right so far. He's taking good at bats, hitting the ball hard. The defense has been smart. Bases he's been smart. So I've heard nothing but good things so far from Robbie about Joey Haddikin.
Yeah, and I would say, there's this constant talk about floor and ceiling. I would say Joey Haddikin is a high floor player. He's a guy who's not necessarily going to make a lot of mistakes. He's going to give you quality, solid at-bats. For him, I think to take that next step, we talk about he's in that 21 to 35 range. If he wants to jump into a top 10 prospect, I think he's got to raise his ceiling, and he does that by getting bigger and building his metrics. But right now, I think he's a very solid player, and he's been on the top team for the last couple weeks, and has been a very solid player for the varsity squad. Let's go ahead and pull up our number 36 through 50 prospects here. Again, I'll tell you what, a lot of names that were left off of the BBN Top 50 prospect list, which is crazy because our first prospect list had 10 names on it, and now we've got 50 names, and I'm still leaving guys off. But KJ, one guy from number 36 to 50 that you want to kind of touch on here.
Yeah, I'll talk about Nick Byrne. This guy's been here a while. He's flown under the radar most of his career. But, this goes out for all the bottom team guys. When the top team is an area that's struggling, that's your time to shine. I think Nick Byrne's really going to get a chance to prove himself in the top team outfield. He's been a consistent free swing student. He never misses a practice. He's in drop bear. He's doing all the things right. And I think Nick Byrne's chance is really going to come here soon for that top team.
Yeah, and talk about a guy who's just kind of kept his mouth shut and worked hard throughout his Bear career. He's been in the top 5 of the lineup for that second team for a long time. And, he's just kept grinding, kept working out, kept building his metrics. And, at some point, I don't think it's far-fetched that at some point this fall, we're going to see Nick Byrne at least get a look to be on that potential 13U Floyd squad. But I've been very impressed by Nick Byrne's work ethic, basically throughout his entire Bear career. But really in the past year, I feel like he's gotten really serious about being a good baseball player. So I think that's been very, very impressive. Let's go ahead to finish out the show. We've got a quick hit segment here. I've got 2 questions. Bernie and KJ, I want a name and maybe 1 or 2 sentences to answer each of these questions. Bernie, I'm going to start with you. Give me 1 prospect on our top 50 prospect list that you think could win an MVP at some point in their career.
I'll stick at 12U. I'll pick up Trey Vonderheide. I just think this kid is, power's there, physical tools are there. It's just a slight mental adjustment. And I think on my team, he's going to get a lot of chances to do so. He's going to get a lot of chances to produce.
KJ, how about you? 1 player who you think could win an MVP at some point in their Bear career.
Yeah, I'll go to Braden Miller. He's a guy who's got the work ethic. He's got the size. He's strong. He's always shown he's not afraid of the weight room. He swings the bat hard. And I wouldn't be surprised if this guy's leading the Bears in home runs at some point and winning an MVP.
Those are both great choices. I'm going to go ahead and go with Gunnar Wilson. When you talk about the impact this guy has, I think he is a very fantastic player. I've been impressed by both his offense and defense and his pitching. I think he's an all-around very, very good player. Finally, our last question here to end out the show. Give me 1 prospect outside of the top 20, so anyone 21 to 50, who you think could be first-team All-American at some point in their career. Bernie, start with you.
14U Kreitler. I'll take Zach Reich, who I think had a very nice season for himself. Last year, I don't know if he was even on this prospects list, and now he comes in. I think he's just outside the top 20. I think he was arguably the best there on the 14U Crowder team. If I know one thing about 14U Floyd, you get on the team, you have to be able to hit, and he had a very good hitting season this year.
I think that's a great choice. KJ, how about you? 1 player you think could be first-team All-American?
Yeah, I'll go to a new guy. I'll go Colin Sandler. Here's a guy he's got decent size. He's a lefty thrower, but a righty hitter. This guy swings the bat really hard. He throws the ball hard. He's very raw right now, but I think this guy could definitely break in to an All-American at some point. He's got the work ethic. I just saw him walking out of practice, sweating with turf all over his face. He's willing to work, so I think he could definitely be an All-American at one point.
Just like you, KJ, I'm going to go with another 15U guy who's an outfielder who works really, really hard. I'm going to go with Noah Hendricks. This is a guy who's, when you're talking about playing for Rob's team, I think a couple check marks you got to hit. Are you big and strong? I think Noah Hendricks already checks that mark. Maybe he could get a little bit more muscle on him, but for the most part, he's already pretty big. Do you work hard? Noah Hendricks definitely works hard, and can you hit? I think that third one still remains to be seen, but I think Noah Hendricks definitely has the potential to at some point be first-team All-American in his Bear career. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Bears Baseball Network. Hopefully we get a full weekend of baseball action because I'm very excited to see all these rookies in a full weekend action and get right back to Hack and Time. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Bears Baseball Network, and we'll talk to y'all next week.